Folks, the bottom has dropped. I'll get into that, and then the latest home prices and insights for condos across the GTA for week ending July the 2nd, 2025. If you want to speak directly with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, it's really simple. Below this video, in the description, there's a link to my calendar. Click on that, book a time that's convenient for you, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. We have spoken quite a bit about condo prices. I mean, that's the show you're watching today. That's what we're going to analyze. We look at all the numbers. For a long time, we've talked about the volume of condos that are for sale right across the GTA versus the few that are selling every single week. And many of you have asked, why aren't prices falling more? And we have seen prices come down. And for a while, they're kind of steady. We've monitored all sorts of sales across the GTA. And on one of our previous shows, a little while back, we spoke about how one bedrooms prices came down and then kind of stopped. And the same with two bedrooms came down and kind of stopped. Now, as far as pricing these condos goes, if you're a seller, you're looking at your one bedroom. And if we were to show you the data for that building that you're in, you're going to see what bachelors sold for. You're going to see what one bedrooms and what two bedrooms have sold for. And there's not a lot of sales these days in condos to talk about. So there's a chance you haven't seen a condo, a unit like yours sell for a while. But you could see what others have perhaps sold for. So if you have a one bedroom and you saw what a bachelor in that building sold for, where in your mind as a seller, you're thinking, well, I should get more for mine than what the bachelor sold for. And if you see a two bedroom that sold and you have a one bedroom, you're thinking, well, I should get a bit less than the two bedroom. So you're kind of in between the bachelor, I should be more, and the two bedroom, I should be less. And that's logical, thinking that way. Buyers think the same thing. If they're offering to buy your one bedroom, buyers are also expecting to spend more on the one bedroom than on the bachelor, but less than what the two bedroom sold for. Well, we saw prices come down and then kind of stay stagnant or not move very much for a long time. And like I said, when we pull the data to produce this show, in a little while after this segment, I'm going to speak about the numbers. Well, we look at all the sales. And for the longest time, bachelor apartments, bachelor condos were selling for around $400,000. So there's only so much room for that one bedroom to come down. It's not going to go below what the bachelor sold for. There's no logical sense for that to happen. And everybody kind of understands that. So bachelors, for the longest time, were hovering around 400,000. We're seeing that change now. We're seeing bachelor apartments now selling. We've seen 350, a little bit higher, 375. So we're seeing that bottom that has been maintained around 400,000 now start to come down a bit lower. It's now between 350 and high 300s. And so in those same buildings, now we're seeing the one bedroom come down a bit more, the two bedroom come down, and so forth. That's just an observation that we're seeing today. So the bottom has moved in some of these buildings out there. So it'll be interesting how this plays out in the coming weeks. If you think this video can help somebody you know, pass it along. If you get value from what we're talking about, consider subscribing. Now, let's get into the numbers. Folks, here we go. Condo apartments for the GTA. We're going to be focused on condos for the city of Toronto, for York region, and for Peel region. Peel region is normally much lower, and I've got average sold prices here on the board. And normally it's Peel region, York region, city of Toronto as far as hierarchy for average sold prices, but now a couple of times just in a few weeks, York Region average price has surpassed City of Toronto average price. We are going to start off with the City of Toronto for week ending July the 2nd. 149 condo apartments were sold. 17 of those sold at $1 million or more. For many other home types, we've experienced since January an increase in sales volume, and then around the end of May, we're seeing sales kind of go the other way, where July and August typically are amongst our slower months when it comes to volume. We're not seeing that with condo sales. 149 were sold. I'm not really seeing a trend up or down. Sales are generally kind of flat when it comes to condos. Average sold price, there is a trend. It's trending down. Currently, we're sitting at $678,000 for the average price of all condos sold in the City of Toronto for week ending July the 2nd. Compared to last year's $678,000, 6% lower than where we were this time a year ago. The median price of $599,000 is 9% lower. The dotted line you see here is a 4-week moving average. It's just another way of looking at the data, and it's a bit more of a smoother line than the weekly average prices, and it makes it sometimes simpler to spot a trend. Well, average price is trending down. The median price seems to be a lot more flat over the span of 3 months that I have on the board here. 149 were sold. Should be 33, not 3. 33 sold, which is 22%. 33 sold at list price or more. 637 new condos were listed. Now that's far fewer than the listings we've been experiencing over the last few weeks and most of the year so far. So we can see listings trending down. Now the orange, that's this year. The blue, it's the same week a year ago. And the same thing happened last year at this time. Just like earlier I explained, sales tend to increase, and then at a certain point, kind of the end of spring, beginning of summer, they go the other way. July and August are typically slower months as far as volume goes. Same thing with listings, but we are experiencing that with listings, not with sales. As a result of fewer listings, active listings, we're seeing it start to kind of go the other way. The same volume isn't there. It's not a noticeable difference. There are a ton of condos for sale. For week ending July the 2nd, there's more than 6,300 condos available for sale. And we said only 149 sold, which is 2.4% of all condos available for sale actually sold. Months of inventory, way up there at 9.8 months of inventory. Very much a buyer's market when it comes to condos in the City of Toronto. That's the whole city. Let's break it down to 9 different sections. Yes, the whole city averages out to 9.8 months of inventory. There's 3 areas I want to bring to your attention. That is, these areas are outperforming the whole city. We have High Park sitting at 7.2 months of inventory. Still a buyer's market, but it's not 9.8 months of inventory, it's 7.2. Etobicoke, 7.6 months of inventory. Midtown, that has one of the highest average sold prices, and we're sitting at 1.2 million as an average sold price for condos, has a 6.8 months of inventory. Still, buyer's market, but not the same level of buyer's market as, say, a 9.8 months of inventory. That's the whole city. Let's look at condos from a different angle. Let's look at 1-bedroom versus 2-bedroom. So the average 1-bedroom condo for weekend in July 2nd, 67 of those were sold. Sales are trending down. The average sold price is $532,000. Average sold price is slightly trending down, not aggressively, but we're now at 532,000. 532,000 is 10% lower than the same week a year ago. And at 7, 8, 9, 10% is kind of the trend. Here are two-bedroom condos. 65 two-bedroom condos sold. Average sold price is sitting at $820,000. I would say average sold price also overall is trending down, but we've had a couple of dips and then the price jumped back up again. Compared to last year, 820,000 is 2% lower, same week a year ago. Now, if we look at it on the same chart, comparing one bedroom to two bedroom, the orange, that's the one bedroom. The blue, that's a two bedroom. Sales, not far apart. They're pretty similar, one bedroom versus two bedroom purchases. But months of inventory is also the same. One bed is 9.8 months of inventory. The two beds is 9.8 months of inventory, which is the same for the overall City of Toronto average. The big difference is price, right? $532,000 for the one bedroom, $820,000 for the average two bedroom sold. That's a price difference of $288,000. It's a big price difference when you're looking at one bedroom versus two bedroom. Let's look at it again in a different light. Let's just look at square footage. Forget one bedroom versus two bedroom, although we would expect most two bedrooms to be larger than one bedroom. But if we look at square footage, the category, now these are categories here when we look at 500 to 599, 800 to 899, for example. These are categories on the MLS system for when listings when properties get listed on the MLS. The category with the most amount of sales, 600 to 699 square feet, 34 were sold. The next closest is 5 to 599, where 22 condos got sold. And when we look at average sold price, it's kind of logical that the higher the square footage, average sold price increases. Well, the higher square footage, they're bigger units, you're often paying, or the reference when we look at condo pricing is often cost per square foot. So naturally, the larger the unit, the more it's going to cost. And a bachelor, the average is $413,000. I'm saying it's a bachelor. There are some one bedrooms in there, but you could see it. Every category, every square footage, average sold price increases. But let's look here at cost per square footage. When we look at, and I've got a range here, so when you see one cost per square foot and another cost per square foot, it's because we're going from 500 to 599, 600 to 699, for example. So I've got the lower square footage, which is a higher cost per square footage, and the higher square footage, which is a lower cost per square footage. And the larger units have the lowest cost per square footage. When you start getting into the, say, 1,000 to 1,200 basically square foot, you're paying between $600 to $740 a square foot. Think about that. $600 to $740 a square foot. When you're buying the smaller units of 5 to 600 square foot, you're paying between $800 to just under $1,000 to $970 per square foot. There's none in here. There's no category where the average is over $1,000 per square foot. For sure, there are sales out there, that individual sales that are going to be more than 1,000 square foot, and there'll be individual buildings that command that, and buyers will buy it at that price, over 1,000 a square foot. But if we're averaging out prices, there's no average in any of these categories that's 1,000 square foot or more. And in fact, anything that you're buying that's 800 square foot or over is well under 1,000 a square foot. You're looking at 856 to 570. Big difference out there from what people are buying pre-construction cost per square foot. Let's get into York Region condos. For week ending July the 2nd, 23 condos sold in York Region. 2 of those sold at $1 million or more. Average sold price, hey, the last couple of weeks, we've been seeing some crazy things happening. We're now sitting at $702,000 for the average condo sold for week ending July 2nd in York Region. I'm just going to bring to your attention the sampling is pretty low. So 23 sold. There's things that can affect the overall average price, and that's why we're looking for trends. Compared to last year, 702 is 12% higher, but we've seen almost the whole year, average price is much lower than where we were this time a year ago. So let's not focus on this 1 week only. The average sold price, we said, is 12% higher. Median price, there's no real percent. It's a little bit lower, but rounds off to a 0% change. Median price is $635,000. Prices were trending down because of what we've seen this last couple of weeks. We're not really sure which way they're going, but the last couple of weeks, prices are a little bit higher. Sold prices. Here's 23 were sold. 8 of those, so 35%, sold at list price or more. Listings trending down. There's 1,178 condos available for sale. So only 2% of all condos for sale in York Region actually sold. Only 2%. Months of inventory, way up there at 11.8 months of inventory. There's buyer's market. There's extreme buyer's market. That's what we're experiencing here. Here's Peel Region. Only 18 condos sold in Peel Region. 2 of those sold at $1 million or more. Average sold price sitting at $561,000. Overall, average price has been trending down in Peel Region. The majority, I'm talking about all Peel Region, but the majority, the vast majority of these condos are being bought and sold in Mississauga. Compared to last year, 561 is 14% lower. The median price of 547 is 13% lower. 18 were sold. 2 of those, so 11%, sold at list price or more. Listings trending down. Active listings, for a couple of weeks, they're a little bit lower now, but still way up there. And sales are so few in Peel Region of condos. Only 1.5% of all condos available for sale actually sold. Months of inventory, 15.1 months of inventory. Look, these months of inventory are just, I've got a summary here. Condos taking a beating. It is an extreme buyer's market. It's just, that's the nature of the condo business right now. And yeah, there's going to be some individual situations and individual buildings that are pretty rare, or you've got this awesome view. But overall, that's the condo market. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.